In 1989, a man using the alias Dennis approached KLAS-TV in Las Vegas. He claimed he was in fear for his life, that he'd been threatened by his former employer, that he'd been hired to help reverse engineer alien spacecraft. He wanted to go public, believing that if anything happened to him, it would only lend credibility to his story, that it would serve to protect him. A year earlier, Lazar was working at Los Alamos National Laboratory, the same lab that decades earlier had built the first atomic bombs. The lab denied they ever employed him. However, his name was found in a Los Alamos National Laboratory phone directory. And a 1982 newspaper article described him as a physicist at the lab who had built a jet-powered Honda Civic. While working at Los Alamos, Lazar attended a lecture by physicist Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb. Afterward, the two had a brief conversation. Bob Lazar would later speculate that it was Teller that had recommended him for the job that would change his life. He was contacted by EG&G, a defense contractor working at a McCarran airport. They didn't tell him what the job was, only that it required a high-level security clearance. He underwent a polygraph, a psychological evaluation, and an intensive background check. He was asked questions about physics, personal history, and national security. Several weeks went by before he received a call from a man named Dennis. He was told to report to McCarran International Airport. There, a small, unmarked plane awaited him, part of the Janet fleet, one of several aircraft used to shuttle personnel to restricted sites across Nevada. He landed at Groom Lake, better known as Area 51. But this would not be Lazar's final destination. He was driven south, along the edge of a dry lake bed, to a facility built into the side of the Papoose mountain range. Its hangars were carved into the rock. If you stood back just a few hundred feet, Lazar once said, the hangar doors appeared to vanish into the hillside. He was placed in a room and given a set of briefing documents. They described a program to back-engineer 9 alien craft. The documents described the small reactor that powered the craft, fueled by element 115, capable of generating its own gravitational field. It claimed they came from a planet orbiting the binary star system Zeta Reticuli. Lazar didn't know what to make of it. It all sounded like science fiction. But it was being presented to him in a military facility, in the context of national security. Afterward, he was escorted down a hallway, past a series of heavy security doors, and into one of the hangars. That's where he saw it, a sleek silver disc, roughly 50 feet in diameter, with an American flag stenciled on its side. Lazar was paired with a man named Barry. The two were assigned to study the craft's propulsion system. Upon examining the craft, he observed a spherical reactor, flanked by 3 conical devices arranged in a triangle below. The interior was cramped, everything curved, almost as if it had been injection molded. There were no visible seams, screws, or fasteners. Just smooth metal surfaces and small seats that looked as if they were designed for children. Barry explained how the propulsion system worked. At the center of the craft sat a small reactor. Fueled by element 115, it emitted a powerful gravitational field, one that could be amplified and directed using 3 cone-shaped devices mounted beneath the craft. Lazar said they called them gravity amplifiers, each one mounted on a gimbal. The craft propelled itself, not by ejecting a propellant out the back, but by generating a gravitational distortion in the direction of travel and then falling into it. In a test demonstration, Lazar said they placed a compact alien device in the lab. A piece of the craft's propulsion system. When powered on, it generated a force so strong he couldn't push his hand through the space above it. He'd read the briefings. He'd seen what the technology could do in isolation. But nothing prepared him for how it behaved in real life. The craft lifted silently from the ground. It snapped from point to point, like frames missing from a film. It would hover in place, then tilt and dart to another position, without turning or banking. The technology didn't fight gravity, it used it to its advantage. It was breathtaking and deeply disorienting. Not because it was fast, but because it didn't behave like anything bound by inertia. It was as if the rules did not apply to it. Lazar believed he was brought in to replace a man who had died on the job. The story, whispered among personnel, was that a team had tried to cut into the craft's reactor. One scientist had used a plasma cutter. The resulting explosion, Lazar was told, was comparable to that of a small tactical nuke. They clearly did not understand what they were dealing with. It was both beautiful and terrifying, like holding a loaded gun, made by something vastly more advanced than us, with no idea how the safety worked. The test flights didn't happen every night, but there was a pattern, usually late Wednesday nights. Lazar began to anticipate them. At the same time, he was being called in less and less, often with no explanation. He was growing frustrated and increasingly disgruntled. He decided to tell a few friends. Not what he was working on, just when and where to look. They parked along a remote stretch of road, just outside the restricted zone. They brought a camcorder and waited. What they recorded left his friends stunned. A bright object darting and hovering in the distance, defying everything they thought they knew about physics. They came back the next week. and the week after that. They behaved as if it was simply fun and games. Sneaking out into the desert night, flippant and amused. Never fully grasping that they were encroaching on one of the most tightly guarded secrets in the nation. On the third trip out to the desert, they pushed their luck too far, staying just long enough for security to intercept them. Armed guards arrived and confiscated their footage. The next day, Lazar was summoned to S4. He was admonished for telling his friends about the test flights. Then they told him they'd been monitoring his phone calls, and that his wife was having an affair. He hadn't known. Lazar believed this was the reason his trips to S4 had become less frequent. They now saw him as unstable, a liability. He never returned to S4. Lazar thought he was being followed. Cars outside his house. Gunshots on the freeway. Was it paranoia? He wasn't sure. He believed going public was the only way to ensure his safety. He described what he saw at S4. Saucers. A reactor powered by an exotic element. And test flights that defied physics. He claimed there were multiple craft. Some dismantled, some intact. The scientists worked in isolation, each with just a piece of the puzzle, and unable to compare notes. When his identity was made public, the reaction was swift. UFO believers hailed him. Skeptics attacked him. And the government denied it all. After Lazar came forward, his background was picked apart. Los Alamos said he never worked there. MIT denied he was ever a student. But then what about the 1982 newspaper article that called him a physicist at Los Alamos? What about his name in the lab phone directory? Or the pay stub from the Department of Naval Intelligence? Then there was the hand scanner. Lazar said it was used at S4 to access secure areas. A device that read bone length to verify identity. At the time, it sounded absurd. But years later, after being declassified, images surfaced. The device was real, and it matched exactly what he described. Today, Bob Lazar lives a quieter life. He runs a scientific supply company in Michigan. He rarely gives interviews, and he avoids the spotlight. But when he does speak, his story hasn't changed. No embellishments, no retractions. He still claims he worked at S4, that he saw alien technology, that the government is hiding it. Decades later, the world has changed. UFOs are UAPs now. The Pentagon has acknowledged sightings. And what was once fringe is now part of the mainstream. But Lazar remains the same. To some, he's a fraud. To others, a whistleblower decades ahead of his time. Whatever the truth, Bob Lazar changed the way we talk about UFOs.